Crazy. That's the best word I can use to describe this current Phoenix real estate market. Crazy isn't always a bad thing, and once I break down the numbers, you'll see it's not so much bad news, it's an advantage to one side, which means the other side has to work a little harder to get their goals accomplished. All I can ask, stick around to the end because you don't want to miss any of this information. Jennifer, what do we have first?
First up, new listings. In May, there were 3,337. In the previous month, it was 9,834. And last year, this time it was 8,430. That's quite a difference.
I'm changing my first word from crazy to wow. When we see new listings at this low level, it's a clear indicator of what potential sellers are thinking. They're thinking now's not the time to put their house up for sale. And you're going to see as we go into the video. Please stick around. I'm going to keep asking you. Oh, well, I'm asking. Click subscribe. That really helps our channel grow. Back to the story at hand. When we see this low level of new listings, it lets us know the confidence of sellers is, well, low. And that's not a bad place for them to be because inventory, as we'll see, has skyrocketed. And what that means for them is more competition. It's not game over, but again, it's definitely concern for a potential seller to keep in mind before they put a for sale sign in their front yard. If you're looking for your dream home, perhaps an investment property or a second home here in the Valley of the Sun, then our new mobile app is for you. It's fast, it's private, it's accurate. Best of all, it's free. Go ahead, give it a try.
Active listings. Last month, there were 26,637. The previous month was about the same, 26,250. And last year, this time, it was only 18,044.
I think the saying goes, if I'm lying, I'm dying. And you can tell by the amount of active listings, I'm telling you the truth. What a great time for potential buyers to talk to their lenders, run the numbers, and then get out there and look at a few houses. You're probably going to find your dream home, and what a great time to do so when there's this much inventory. It's through the roof. And you see new listings are in the basement. Pardon the real estate pun. I try to make it exciting. Real estate's not always the most, fun thing to talk about. For me, I love it. And for most people, it's a monster, huge decision, financial that is. So they want to make sure that they're doing it correctly. That's why I'm giving you the facts and figures to point you in the right direction, whichever side of the proverbial fence you're on, buying and or selling. So, with inventory being this high, sellers understand there has to be some wiggle room when a contract comes in. They need to negotiate because buyers, at least buyers that are represented properly, are going to submit an offer to the sellers for what might be their dream home strong. In other words, they're going to ask for things that they may not have if there was only a couple of houses for sale. Quite the contrary. Like life and oceans, real estate has its ebbs and flows. And right now, buyers, you need to get out there and take advantage of what's happening.
Closed listings, 6,594. The previous month was 6,884. And last year this time, there were 7,035 closed listings.
Thanks, Jen. I love this statistic. Closed listings is a great indicator that kind of states the obvious. We can see from last month, the month prior, and all the way back a year ago that houses are being sold. So that's a good thing. They're remaining constant or thereabouts. Where the opportunity for buyers comes in is that the amount of houses that are being closed or sold isn't keeping up to the amount of properties that were put on the market. I say were because if you're paying attention, and I know you are, new listings are drastically down. So that tells us the potential sellers see that inventory stockpile and probably aren't going to list their house right now until buyers get off the fence and start looking for their dream home. Once they start gobbling up inventory and it starts decreasing, my guess or the natural path would be sellers will then say, our houses are being sold, inventory will start decreasing, potential sellers will put their properties on the market, and the wheels on the real estate bus will go round and round. So in conclusion, what a great time for buyers to get out there and start looking. Sellers, if your property's on the market, make sure it is neat and clean and you are available to show it pretty much around the clock. Well, during hours of operation. And in real estate, sometimes that's around the clock. Opportunities knocking, open up.
This statistic might be a reflection of the new listings. Average sales price, $612,996. And the previous month was $598,446. And last year was $602,315.
Average sales price is that one statistic that both buyers and sellers really focus in on for different reasons, of course. Buyers want to make sure that they're going to get their money's worth, and sellers want to capitalize on the return on investment. Both sides make sense. That being said, what a fantastic time for the Phoenix real estate market. You can see over the year that prices have gone up. Yes, there's been, again, ups and downs, but what a great time to buy property when it's holding relatively steady and increasing, in fact. You want to buy a product. You know, a funny story, and it's probably obvious to most, but worth repeating. Most sellers want to get every nickel they can. Makes sense. Most buyers want to get the house for the best price they can. That makes sense. So many times buyers are hoping for a crash and sellers are hoping for a spike. But what's ironic is as soon as the buyer purchases their home, they want to see it go through the roof. And I guess if a buyer has sold a property and they're out there looking again, they'd like to see the prices of houses decrease. So it's always which hat you're wearing. And many times people are buying while they're selling. Perhaps they're upsizing or they're downsizing, and with that comes different statistics, or I should say a different game plan to what's the better move for them. If it's a market where the house is worth more and they're going to downsize, it might be advantageous for them to take advantage of a certain situation. We could talk about that later on. And the other way around, if you're going from a smaller property to a bigger property, it might behoove you to look at actually keeping that original smaller property, maybe it was your first home, as an investment property until the market moves in a direction that's more favorable. And as we're seeing now, what would be more favorable for sellers is inventory to be gobbled up, whereas right now it's favoring buyers. So potential sellers might hold off and again keep a property as an investment property, because rentals here in the Valley of the Sun, whew, what a great time to own one of those. However, buying investment property, rental properties as it were, is a conversation or a video for a different time, perhaps both. Give me a call. I'd love to talk about it. Investing in real estate is one of my favorite subjects. But back to average sales price. What's probably happening, in my humble professional opinion, we're getting into prime season. And what that means is prices are going to hold their own because the Valley of the Sun is a desirable place to live or own property. Economy is good, the weather is great, things to do all the time. So when you have all those pieces fitting, prices should hold their own. And they are, in fact, from last year till now, they have increased. And if some people think that the sky is going to fall, or in other words, the market's going to crash, sure. Could it happen? It will. But there's other theories that say it's not going to. And even if it does, and I'm just giving you my humble professional opinion, if you bought the home of your dream and you enjoy living there and the payments are what you want them to be, should the market decrease price-wise, you're not moving anywhere. In time, you're paying the property down, you're building equity, and usually, if you're going with a theory that something might fall, it will also rise again. The Phoenix, pardon the pun. Boy, a lot of puns in this video. But again, moving forward with the theory of will houses decrease, they're going to fluctuate up and down. If you're living at mom's or dad's or both and you can save money, stay there. The home cooking is probably delicious. They might even help you with the laundry. But if you're renting and you could look at the average rental price or just look at what you're paying for rent, that's a lot of money that you're paying somewhere else. You know, the joke in real estate is you're always paying a mortgage. It's either yours or your landlord's. So that money also fluctuates into where you're calculating the market to, in this case, decrease to offset the interest rates that might be higher. But remember, and I know I'm doing a lot of babbling here, so you can watch this video again and again. That would help both of us. Oh, it's been a long night. But this point is true. If in fact you're just spending money on rent, you're better off buying now. Again, I'm not a lender, but there's tax write-offs. You can have a roommate, you can alter the property, you can get pets. You don't have to worry about a landlord raising the rent or may not renew the lease with you, or they may actually put the house for sale. There's a lot of things they could do. So don't be so, I don't want to use the word afraid, because I know you're good at looking to these numbers and coming to us for financial advice when it comes to real estate, I should say real estate advice. When you run the numbers, you'll see that it really is, for potential buyers, a great time to get out there and see what's available. If you don't like something, don't buy it. But what if the numbers work and you find a house that will become a home? It's a win-win. And should interest rates fall, most of the good lenders, especially the ones we work with, and that's a plug to them because they're great at what they do, they're going to help you refinance at a lower rate if the numbers make sense. But all the while, you're learning how to move forward in the real estate market. And this first property probably won't be your last. And that's where I circle back around to say that this property now, although it would be a home, it's also an investment, and it might turn out to be your first investment. If and when we talk, let me tell you how I got into real estate. If the data within this Phoenix real estate market update video, or any others for that matter, isn't clear, please reach out to me. I'd be honored to answer your questions. That's what this channel is about, helping you learn the facts and figures when it comes to most anything Arizona, especially real estate.
Sold to list price ratio. Last month it was 97.6%. The previous month, exactly the same, 97.6%. And last year this time, 97.9%. So pretty much steady across the board. And what this actually means is if you got your full list price, you would be at 100% sold to list ratio.
Thanks, Jennifer. Not only did you give us the statistics for sold to list ratio, you also gave us a great definition, because sometimes I do talking and that gets me parched. Subliminal, subliminal, subliminal. In any event, since Jennifer covered the facts and explanation for this great statistic, let's move on to the next one.
Up, up, and away. Monthly supply of inventory. Last month it was 4. The previous month it was 3.8, and last year it was 2.6.
Month supply of inventory might be one of my favorites, maybe because it's the easiest, and I know in every video I say the same thing, but that's because it's true and has held true over the years. A good amount is between 2 months low and 4 months high. So mean average, 3 months. Right now, you can see we're hovering right at the high end, 4 months, which again, everything coming to fruition to inform us that now buyers have the advantage to get out there and look around. There's a lot of inventory. In fact, you're at the number that I think is about as high as we'd like to see it go. Of course, if it breaks to 4 months, it's not like I'm going to be running around thinking real estate is doomed and it's never going to recover. It's just that when we get to a certain amount of inventory, we need to start selling properties so then that inventory level gets back to more even keel. But again, real estate will always go up and down and up and down. So right now, well, I guess the salmon are running, although we're talking about real estate. It's a good time to throw your hook in the water and catch yourself a house, because there's a lot of houses in the river. Jesus, I don't even know if that makes sense, but I'm sticking with it. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think is going to happen in 2025.
Listing success rate. Last month it was 68.2%. The previous month, a little bit better, 71.3%. And last year, 75.7%. And what this means is basically 30% or more of the homes listed are not going to sell.
Based on those listing success numbers, doesn't look like we're so successful. I'm joking. I'm a joker. When you're at 70% selling, 30% not, and again, those numbers vary based on location and type of property, but if we're just sticking with the numbers that we're given, and we trust these numbers, and I know you trust me, so we have that trust going on. We're not in a bad position at all. If I start seeing, or we start seeing 50-50, every other house being put on the market does sell and the other one doesn't, then there might be a reason for concern. But right now, coming into prime season, especially here in the Valley of the Sun, it's a great time. And I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times for buyers to get out there and look at what's what. There's no rush, well, at least on our end of it, for them to purchase a property. Some might be moving here or their lease is up, and there's a lot of reasons where they do want to actually pull the trigger now. But if that not being the case for them, there's no rush on buying a property, but it's definitely a great time for them to get out there and look for properties. And sellers know that they have to have their house in, tip-top shape or thereabouts and available to be shown, because if somebody can't view their property, they're certainly not going to submit an offer. And the other thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned while we're talking about 'tis be the season for buying, you have to understand that if inventory starts to get gobbled up, as I've said, then all of a sudden the inventory where we felt 2 months to 4 months is where we want to be, and right now we're at that high end. If we start seeing inventory creep down towards that 2 and perhaps under 2, then the market shifts. And what you don't want to do if you're a potential buyer is let that inventory escape, and now you're in bidding wars and you're waiting in line to get into see properties. You don't want that. What might be holding people back, and I thought it was twofold, now I'm going to say it might be onefold. Correct me if I'm wrong, leave me a comment. I love hearing your thoughts on this. But right now, I believe inflation and cost of goods and services are going down, which is helping everybody's pocketbook across the board. But interest rates are still hovering, and I think as of this video, they just broke under 7%, which is good. I don't think we're going to see the 3s and 4s again. But my point being is, if cost in goods and services are lower, which is good, and interest rates get down to that, let's say mid 6 or maybe, low 6, maybe even high 5s, it's going to be a feeding frenzy of buyers out there. And that's where buyers don't want to be rushed and pressured into just taking anything. So if I said it once again, I've said it 1,000 times. Buyers, now's the time to get out there. Sellers, just be prepared to show your property when the buyers want to see it.
Average days on market. Last month it was 76. The previous month, 76 also. And last year, just a little bit better at 64.
Last but not least, and what a fitting saying, because days on market is the last statistic I'll be speaking about, but it's not the least. Matter of fact, it's one of the most important statistics that I look at. And here is a little FYI for you. Many people don't know the true definition or meaning of days on market. It doesn't mean, if we use the number 60 or 70, whatever the current days on market are, that that's how long the property took to physically sell, like the moment that a sign went in the front yard to the moment a buyer strokes a check and the seller receives their profits for the property. No. What it means is days on market is when a house goes up for sale, that many days on market until the property was under contract. And between under contract and sold, some things can happen. You've seen properties, if you've been in the market, that actually go back on the market. Remember, even if it's a cash buyer, they may have an appraisal and they may have an inspection. And if there's a loan involved, more than likely there's going to be an appraisal from the lender and an inspection. It's always up to the buyer to have one. But if you're asking my advice, always get a home inspection. So my point to that being is, when a property goes under contract, they still have to get past the appraisal, if applicable, and an inspection, if applicable. So there are steps prior to a property going under contract before it's sold. So the days on market are only a reflection of how long it took a property once it was for sale to go under contract. It doesn't mean that the property was sold in that amount of time. If you like this video, make sure you check out this one. I'll see you over there. Until next time, take care. God bless America. I'll talk to you soon.